Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. If you're somebody that has apprehension about making a presentation, and that could be in person, that could be a Zoom video, I've got a guy that you need to talk to. Well, actually, I'm going to talk to him, and he's going to help you out with it. Any kind of presentation, even just enhancing what you say, the way you present yourself, having more confidence when you talk, and just show yourself as an expert in your field, all come from presenting your way to success. And that's his business, present your way to success. David Doerrier is back with us, and it's good to have him back. David, how you doing?
Oh, good. Doing good, Steve. Starting off this new year with a lot of energy. I hope you're doing well.
I am. And it's interesting where I have, and I'm sure a lot of people that you speak with or you work with have a block when it comes to talking, presenting. I'm going to share my block. You ready?
Go ahead.
Names. Forever, whenever I was going to do anything, present anywhere, talk to anybody, even in a room full of people, I had a fear of messing up somebody's name. And I still to the day do it. Like, I looked at your name and I was like, Doerrier. That's right. It is Doerrier. I'm overthinking this. Why do I need to do this? Why? And then immediately a block comes into my head. And I guess it's because there was a couple of times way back in the day that I messed up a few names and, got a dirty look. And then from that point forward. So I think we all, no matter what you do, we all have maybe a block or two, call it a speed bump that you have to get over to move to the next step. I don't know if I'm, shooting anywhere here, but I feel that I'm speaking from experience in that regard. Thank God I got your name right this time.
Oh, yes, you did it. You said it perfectly. But I have the same fear. I've done a lot of classroom training, and here in the Atlanta area, working with a number of IT organizations, you have people from other parts of the world that have very different and unique names. And I often struggle, even after the person has told me 2 or 3 different times of how to pronounce their name. I get really embarrassed. It's important to me to be able to say the name correctly, because if someone was continuing to say my name incorrectly, well, David is certainly easy, but if someone was continue to mispronounce my last name, which is difficult, I guess some people could take offense to it. It is important. What I've done in the classroom, I have a horrible memory, so I will, in a classroom setup, I will have a cheat sheet which will have a seating chart with all of where folks are sitting, so that helps me out. And I guess another way you can work around it in a classroom is people put name tags on there in front of them.
100%, but that doesn't guarantee you're going to say their name right.
Correctly. Correct.
Or, hey, we're talking to David D today. There's another way, to get around it. But all of this, the common presentation problems that people come across, the blocks, the triggers, whatever it might be, all comes down to what you call the adult learning theory. And that's, from my understanding, helps you move things along. And that's a well-known theory that you've kind of harnessed yourself and expanded on to work with people. Yes.
Malcolm Knowles is the father of the adult learning theory, and he has 5 principles. And the adult learning theory is all about, number one, what are adults looking for in every learning situation, but more so not just learning, but engaging. If they're sitting in an audience listening to a lecture, if they're sitting in a meeting, if it's a one-on-one coaching session, or maybe it's a mentoring session, all adults are looking for the same thing, and it all comes down to engagement. They want to be engaged. They don't want to be talked to. And the adult learning theory gives, in what I have, it breaks it down into 8 separate principles that a speaker, trainer, any sort of presenter should keep in mind, not only when they're on stage presenting, but also when they are writing their speech or training or whatever it happens to be.
So can we go through some of the key principles of the adult learning theory?
Sure. Let's start with these are in no particular order. Again, these are 8 principles that all adults are looking for. Let me also put an asterisk here and say that part of this adult learning theory also addresses the differences in the folks that are in your room. For example, some are auditory, some are visual, and some are kinesthetic. So those are going to be some of the differences that you also have to account for. But we'll start off with the first one, which is called primacy and recency. And so when you think about the words primacy and recency, I'm going to practice or demonstrate some of these principles with you, Steve, and say, when you think about primacy and recency, when you hear those words, what comes to mind?
Say the words again. I want to process that. Let me have that again.
Yep. Primacy and recency.
I would think primacy, and again, I'm just shooting from anywhere here, but primacy sounds like primary and it's important. Recency sounds like obviously something recent, something that would be relevant.
Perfect. Well, yes. So definitely recency, it is something that is most recent. And what we're getting at here with the principle of primacy and recency, adults will remember impactful firsts. That's part of the primacy. Impactful firsts. So thinking about your first car and your first apartment and the first radio station that you worked at and the time slot that you worked at in that radio station is probably easier for you to remember than it is to think about your third car, your fourth apartment, the third radio station you worked at, something along those lines, or the third job. So the way that is relevant for speaking is that the opening of whatever type of presentation you're making, it has to be impactful. It has to immediately gain your audience's attention. And recency is talking about the most recent thing. It's much easier to think about or remember the last movie you saw at the movie theater, or the last good bottle of wine that you drank, or the last dinner that you had, than it is what was the third from the last movie, or the third from the last bottle of wine, or whatever it happens to be. So here, principle of primacy and recency, impactful firsts and impactful lasts.
Okay, so I want to make sure I have that. So the primacy is the first and the last. If you want to make a true impression on somebody, the last is just as important as the first. Am I hearing that right?
Exactly, but primacy is firsts, recency is last.
Gotcha. So if I may apply this, even in terms of marketing, you could go with, and again, I'm just making this up, but the message could be, remember when you got your first car, how you were so excited to drive it? Well, we're going to recreate that when you buy your car at David's car lot. I just made that up, but you know what I'm saying? No, connecting it.
It's that is a great example, because what you've used here is also another principle in the principle of relevance, that here you're saying, remember the last time that you were in the car, or remember the last time that you bought a car, or the last time you smelled that new car smell. Here, many people, if not all, have experienced that, and they can easily put themselves in that car or in that place of being in that car. Or remember the last time you were able to have a great project at work. Or remember the last time you struggled on stage with giving a presentation. Remember that last time you were sweating profusely when you had to get up on stage, giving them that emotion, getting them, again, feeling that emotion. Great example.
That is so cool. And, you could take that and move it steps further by saying, remember the last time you had to speak to somebody at work or give a presentation? Well, forget it, because it's never going to happen again, because we're going to tell you how to get past that.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So what you're doing is they are theater of the mind, of getting them to remember that time, or think about, well, I've got a presentation coming up in a week, so this might be some great information.
This is exciting, and because I've done marketing for a long time, and I just went back in my mind and wasn't even, quite honestly, I didn't know this principle. I just did this campaign, I guess maybe instinctively, but it was for dental implants, and it was telling people to smile again. Like you can smile again when you get the implants, but the creative on it was, and I'm just connecting to the primacy, it's remember when your first child was born and you smiled, we'll smile again. Or remember when you got married, or remember, and one of them, honestly, and I could even send it to you, David, was your first car. Not even kidding. It was an ad campaign, but it connected to a radio campaign. So powerful stuff here, first and last.
Yeah. Yep, first and last. And in the case of the last, something that a lot of people forget is having a conclusion to your presentation. And the conclusion could be as simple as, today we looked at A, B, and C, these three things, reminding them of your name, giving them that call to action. And that is a piece that many people forget in a presentation.
So true. And it's usually, to your point, the call to action and what to do, i.e. website, because that's how they're going to find you the easiest way outside of a phone number, which nobody remembers, is the last thing. So that would be, we call that again, what was that? The recency?
That's recency.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Good stuff.
So that is one of the 8 principles of the adult learning theory, the principle of primacy and recency. The next, obviously we can't go through all 8 of them, but I wanted to focus on another one that is really important, not only in training, but in sales, and that is the principle of ownership. Here we're talking about the learner or the people that are in your meeting or the prospect that's sitting on the other side of the Zoom call or on the other side of the desk at the dealership, or the car dealership, is that individual needs to take ownership of this information. Part of that is this product relevant? Or I should say, part of this is the with them. What's in it for me? If the adult doesn't see what's in it for me, if the adult doesn't see the value of this training, the value of this new product being sold to you, if they don't understand the value of being in this meeting, they're going to tune out. So the principle of ownership.
How do you apply that? Can you give us any further examples in terms of applying it to yourself so you feel that, hey, there's something in it for me?
Well, I'll give you a real-life example. I was teaching software at a Atlanta-based huge network here. The name CNN. I was teaching over there, and this was back in the early 80s. I was teaching them a product they were going from paper-based expense reports to an online expense report system. And there was a ton of resistance going to this online system. And there were so many problems with the paper-based, as you can imagine. This was back in the early 2000s. And what I was able to do to get them to take ownership was, if you get your expense report in before noonish on Tuesday and your manager approves it by noonish on Wednesday, the money will be in your bank by Friday, end of day. So there I was able to show them relevance on how this product, by learning how to use it and accepting it, how it's going to value, or how it's going to be a value to them. So the with them, what's in it for me, getting paid a lot faster than this paper-based system.
Got it. Okay. So it's got to be something that you can truly relate to, and there's got to be a benefit. There's got to be a reason why, and what we're talking about, what's in it for you, being able to present with confidence, have confidence, feel better about speaking in public or during a presentation, and quite honestly, look better at work. So, that's what's in it for you in terms of what we're talking about.
Yep. Yes. So yes. Being in if I'm a participant in the meeting, then this topic that we're discussing needs to be relevant to me. It needs to, how is this topic going to impact me, and what value does it have to me? The same with trying to sell me something. If you're trying to sell me a Lamborghini, yes, a Lamborghini is nice, and I would love to have it sitting in my garage, but it's not practical to me. So why are you continuing to try to sell me something that I don't need?
How would you sell somebody on that Lamborghini? It would be a tough sell. Sure, everybody wants one, but is it practical?
Right. I've come here today to look for a Toyota that is practical for me and my family, and the sales guy is spending all this time talking to me about a car that is not relevant to my needs.
Sure. And I guess the other part that would come into play here, David, is logical. It's many times it's been said that somebody's not going to accept something, buy something, unless it passes the logic test in their brain. And, that Lamborghini, yeah, who wouldn't want to have that red, incredible sports car in your driveway? But is it logical? Can't afford it. There's no room for the kids, all that.
Right, exactly. So at some point, your listeners tune out because you're not giving me what I need. It's not relevant to me. So some of the text, the principle of ownership is to help adults accept new knowledge, new skills, assist them with taking ownership as early as possible. So this, in a training situation, part of your opening needs to have this. It needs to have something in it that's going to say, this is what you're going to learn today. This is why you're going to learn it. This is how it's going to benefit you. And when we get to the end of this lesson, you're going to have a better understanding of A, B, and C. And this is how you'll be able to apply it in your job.
Love it. These principles are truly fantastic. And how you move them to help somebody present better is on point. I want to check the time here. We have more time. Can we hit up another one?
We can. One of them is the principle of relevance. I don't need to really talk much about that because we all understand that if it's not relevant, then we're moving on. So that is another principle of relevance. But I want to talk about the principle of complexity. This is where a lot of not only new trainers, but and I should say presenters, even seasoned presenters and seasoned trainers, I have found have had the most difficulty with the principle of complexity. And as a subject matter expert, and I think we've talked about this before, a subject matter expert has a ton of knowledge. And they come into a room, whether they're speaking, whether they're training, and then many times they just bombard their audience with a lot of information. And the principle of complexity is it has several pieces to it. Number one is you have to understand what is the current knowledge level of your audience. And I like to use the analogy of a swimming pool, that you have the deep end of the pool and you have the shallow end of the swimming pool. And you need to understand, where are my learners, or where are the participants in this pool? The deep end of the pool represents all of the complex analogies and stories and everything else complex about what it is you're talking about is down there at the deep end of the pool. And I'm sure everybody has experienced a speaker who started off their presentation immediately diving into the deep end of the pool and talking over everybody's heads. And the participants are more likely, or could be, down there at the shallow end of the pool because they just don't have the knowledge of this topic yet. So you have to first understand, where are your learners, where are your participants, and then meet them where they are in the pool, and then slowly bring them with you to that deep end of the pool, or else your participants are going to drown.
Love that analogy. I always gravitate back to, and I've been using this term for a long time, but you don't want to be too cool for the room. Mm-hmm. You don't want to be talking over their heads where, like, yeah, I know everything. You're just, you're too cool for what people are able to digest and accept. And I guess that almost plays into the relevancy, because if you're talking about something that's too deep, maybe too technical for the people that you're speaking to, then it's not going to be relevant, and then you're going to lose them. They're going to drown.
Yep, they're going to drown. And I've worked with a lot of IT folks, and they have a lot of technical knowledge, and they come into the room and tell you everything and anything about this new software product, and the participants, all they want to know is, how do we turn it on?
Right.
And that's it. That's all we need to know.
I have a friend who works for IBM, long time working there, and obviously a tech guy, and he had a passion for speaking, and he started making videos. And I'm bringing this up because you never know where your path is going to go. So obviously, to what we're talking about, he's a tech guy, but he had a way of explaining things in a regular guy kind of way. He started making videos. Then he, somewhat in the tech area, in his field, sort of became kind of famous. Like, people would ask him to speak, but he would always speak in a way that he connected with the audience. It was never too cool for the room. He connected with them in a very relatable way. And I guess it all kind of plays into what we're talking about. But I even bring that up also because you may be listening and you're in a certain field, and you may have even an ability to relate to people and not even know it, but not know how to hone your presentation skills. And that's what this could help. PresentYourWayToSuccess.com could help you with that and move you forward. And you might have a passion there that you didn't even know existed.
Right. Yep. Yeah. Well, how are we doing on time?
We have about 3 minutes left.
Okay. So I will demonstrate another principle of the adult learning theory. And so today, what we looked at, we took a glance at the primacy and recency, thinking about impactful firsts, impactful lasts, which is the opening of a presentation, the closure of a presentation, the call to action, and making sure that it is impactful. We also talked about the principle of ownership, where your learners or participants need to take ownership of this learning or this new process or this what you're trying to sell them. If they don't feel that it's relevant to them, or if they don't have the whiff of what's in it for me, then they're going to tune out. And finally, we looked at the principle of complexity, which finding out where are your folks in the pool and meeting them where they're at, and then slowly bringing them to the deep end. And what I hopefully just demonstrated was the principle of repetition.
I love what you just did there. You recapped, which most
Right.
people don't do in a presentation. That was fantastic.
Yeah, and so I did that to demonstrate another principle, which is the principle of repetition. Many speakers get up in front of the room and they're like a train and on high speed, just going from A to Z with no stopping, no transitions, no reviews, nothing, and we just can't absorb all that information.
1,000,000,000%. And I often call it the power of the pause. It's okay to stop. Put a pause in there. It's all right.
Yeah.
It's like, I think in our minds, we think that pause is, you could drive, an 18-wheeler through it. It's so wide, but it's really not in reality. It sounds like eternity in your brain, but it's a second, if that.
Yep, exactly. I'm always telling folks, the clients I work with, that the pause will always seem 10 times longer to you than it does to the audience. And I know what it feels like being on stage as an actor, forgetting a line, and you think you've been standing there for an hour, and it's just like maybe a couple of seconds.
True. And in that time, you can even change it up. Let's say you're speaking, you forget what you're going to say, you pause for a second.
Right.
You know what I really want to tell you? After you remember what it was. There's many different ways, but we're all obsessed when we're faced with the task of doing a presentation where you feel like you got to keep firing away, fire away. Tap the brakes. It's okay. We are at a time. PresentYourWayToSuccess.com is the website. So much great information there, so much insight. And David, you really do have a grip on teaching people to to really kick up their presentation skills. And one other thing I do want to share, and it's on a personal note, you have links on your website to a bunch of different things. One of them is your online radio station, which I clicked it. And we're both from Long Island, coincidentally, and your station there online is called Classic Long Island Radio. And I'm like, wow, how cool is that?
Yes, it's well, thank you so much for checking it out. I've had that for a number of years. I've based it on as a kid, what I listened to, WBAB on Long Island, and especially WNEW with the album-oriented rock. So I appreciate you checking it out.
All I'm going to say, and this is going to be, our thing here, but we're going to show our age here, but Neil Young, Comes a Time. What a great song. What a great album. There you go.
Yeah. Thank you.
It's good stuff. All right. I digress. I shouldn't be doing that in a presentation, but hey, it's real. Presentyourwaytosuccess.com. Go to the website, start the process, reach out to David and schedule a meeting and learn how to have more confidence and speak well and actually have a plan the next time you have to give that presentation. Always a pleasure, David, hanging out with you, and looking forward next time we get a chance to do that.
Great. Thank you. Have a great week.
Hey, you too. We'll be right back.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.